Hi everyone, Tim Kitzer from NBA Jam and NFL Blitz. When any old nonsense won't do, you need to tune into the Important Nonsense Podcast with Steve Bonham. Ooh, boom shakalaka.
Welcome into the Important Nonsense Podcast. I am your host, Steve Bonham. You can find me everywhere at nonsense_Steve. We are talking nonsense once again, and you can see on the board behind me, stay humble, stay nimble. And that is because I'm talking with at Nimble W Numbers, Scott Simpson today about everything he does fantasy football related and why he's somebody you should absolutely be following if you aren't already. So check it out. So we're going to kick things off here, Scott. In case people aren't as familiar with you as I am, can you tell the listening/viewing audience who you are and all the amazing things that you do in the fantasy football world?
Well, thank you, sir. And I did not pay you. What's your PayPal again? To say those things. So my name is Scott Simpson, Nimble W Numbers. Implicitly, it is Nimble with numbers for, Twitter just kind of limits your capacity to say what you want and be who you want. So I got to, truncate it a little bit. But I think, deep down, I am a nerd, an analytics nerd, a guy who loves reading, a guy who loves photography. I'm a dad. I got 2 girls under the age of 10. So I'm an educator. So I love learning. But then the other side of me loves having fun, comedy, just being silly. I think that, if you're going to give, somebody a bunch of numbers and data, it needs to be interesting. You need to be engaging. You have to kind of bring something different. So I've kind of spent the last couple months being silly on Twitter. Maybe you've seen some of my pictures, but maybe you have not. Hopefully you've not. But for me, I think there's a fine mixing of the two. And I think in fantasy football, you can do, if you're me, you can do both. You can bring people in with being funny, being silly, but then I've got good content. And so I just published my wide receiver 2 theory. I put it on my account, my website, and I'm really excited about that. But it's not me with my shirt off. It's not me drinking beers and running the 3-cone drill. So sometimes people are like, what's this guy doing? Well, that was just to kind of get you into the tent. And now that you're in the tent, I'm secretly I love data and football particularly. The football has been a part of my life since I was 5, and the Redskins lost to the Raiders in the Super Bowl. And my grandma, who lived down in Silver Spring, Maryland, was a Raiders fan, which is unheard of back then. And I think it was like 83 or whatever. She was just so excited the Raiders had won, and I got introduced to football, and I loved it. And I never stopped. And I quit being a Washington football fan maybe like eight years ago. I just gave up. And my true love now is fantasy football. I love everything fantasy football. I'm in 18 dynasty leagues. I'm in 20 best ball leagues. I'm in 10 redraft leagues. And so for me, and DFS is coming, and DFS is coming. Right. And I don't have it with me here. It's over at my mantle, but I just got my DFS Man's coin from Pete Manzanelli, AKA Pete Overzet. So I love that world too. So if it's a football, it's related to football and guys, I'm into it. It's my thing. So. Yeah.
If people haven't checked out the full Costanza, they got to go back. I mean, that was classic.
Yeah, search anniversary. Man. Yeah, Nimble Numbers anniversary.
That was fantastic.
I had that brewing for a while, and the truth is I had to shoot that myself with a video. And so there's an 8-minute video of me just like on the, and there's.
Oh, and then you just took the screenshots.
That's terrible. Smart. Yeah, I just took screen. It's terrible to watch. And when I do pass one day eventually, and that data finds its way to somebody, they're gonna be like, "This is the scariest video," and someone's gonna go, "No, I know that guy. I saw him on Twitter like 30 years ago."
That guy. Oh, that's what happened to him. Okay.
Oh man, but I am a fan of comedy and Seinfeld and things like that. So if I can jump into people's world in a silly way, but then kind of stick around for more meaningful fantasy football takes, and that's kind of my goal, I guess, right now.
Yeah, so you kind of brought it up too. Like for me, I think the hardest part about working in fantasy football or doing anything with this is just getting established, is just getting up off the ground, because if you don't have a following, then it doesn't mean anything. So after you're trying to get into everything, like I have a full-time job working for the school district here. I have my wife and my 2 boys. So I also have time that I want to, just blow off steam and play games with my friends or something. So it's all about a perfect like work-life balance. So how do you juggle everything you have going on outside of fantasy football?
Oh, that's a great question. And that kind of leads that if you go back, kind of pull the yarn on that a while back. Last fall, I was doing fantasy football in a couple leagues. I'm on Twitter, probably have 500, 600 followers on Twitter. Still love fantasy football, still ahead, still follow everybody and trying to learn everything about it. I'm working a job in education where I'm an evaluator of teachers, and so I'm working 80 hours a week. I'm observing teachers every day. I'm writing reports, and it is breaking my soul. And so in mid-October, one Friday night, I'd worked 80 hours that week. I just said, I'm done. I wasn't done, but I was done writing for other people. And I started a website called Nimble with Numbers, or nimblewnumbers.com. And I just started writing DFS. And it was just for me. I stayed up all night. My wife's like, you bought a website? Like, what are you doing? And I said, I'm doing this for me. I'm tired of being used by the machine. Tired of just being, stamped out. And so long story short, my daughter developed some health complications. I resigned from that leadership position. And so I'm back in the classroom, which frees me up. Now I don't have to work 80 hours a week. I can work 40 hours a week like I'm supposed to, which is what I want to do. And the leadership position wasn't paying me any extra. It was still on my teacher's salary. It was just out of the goodness of my heart, I got to work a whole nother, full free year for my company a couple times.
Lucky you. Yeah.
Lucky me. So I'm not doing that anymore, and I'm dedicating. So I do have more free time, but it's a balancing act. I mean, today I had to, didn't have to. I get to go to the pool with my daughter. I got to go on my walk with my other daughter. We played some Mario Kart. I got to, write and get ready for my own draft tonight and put up stuff on my website for the Fantasy Millionaires. And so it's a balancing act. Did all my chores, mowed the grass. And I think the main thing that I do is I know what I want every day. And I know who I need to serve and care for, especially as a dad. You've got children, you have a wife, or if you're a mom or whoever, if you're, I'm not going to assume that you're a man and doing fantasy football. Ladies are killing fantasy football, and they have
crushing
it. So yeah, but either way, I think knowing what you want each day from each of the different areas of your life is important. And so for family, fantasy is not first, family's first. And so if my daughter were to have something she needed me to help with, I might have to not be a part of this, which is unfortunate. But this, but I prioritize what's important, know what's important, know what I can do to help other people, and then my schedule. I schedule everything. And so this was on my fantasy schedule. This is my podcast schedule. I have a weekly schedule where if people invite me on, I can look at it and say yes or no, and it correlates to my family schedule. And so I'm 41. I'm old. And I think one thing I've learned is, surprises on the schedule do not bless the wife. So also just I'm constantly communicating and figuring out what people need and how I can support them. In establishing a daily routine that's going to get them the food they need, the whatever the medicine they need, just the daily support in school they need, and then me do what I need to do. And so it's a balancing act. And I might sleep on the couch sometimes in the basement because I'm not because I'm banished, but just because I'm up all night working, or I'm like in the lab like Edison, kind of having a weird schedule. But I wouldn't give it up. I love this. I love being able to talk to you today. I love going to a draft. I'm going from fantasy football. I did a podcast before I came on here with Jason Sarney, who's my friend. We did a prop betting podcast for an hour. So, I mean, I'm all in, and I'll make time to do this. I think that you're doing it right now. You're in your house. You're podcasting. You love this.
You can see my kids and the dogs running around in the window in the background.
I love that. But I locked mine out. My back downstairs down here, and they're trying to get in the basement. I'm like, I'm going to mute my mic, So, I mean, I think it's important in all of this to keep perspective. And so we're here in a great place, in a great space with great people. I love fantasy Twitter. They are, I think if you kind of get through the periphery of people just yelling hot takes and arguing over players and rankings and that kind of stupid periphery stuff on Twitter, you can get to just a bunch of amazing people who have gone through hardships, who are going through hardships, who can relate to you, who can support you, who you can care for, who you can build relationship with. And so, I mean, all of this is just exciting for me as I get to talk to people like you and get to build relationships and learn from people, because this is just it's a cool place for me, for sure.
Oh yeah, 100%. And I've been asked many times by my wife and others, like, why do you spend your free time arguing with people on the internet about stuff that doesn't actually matter? I was like, I'd rather do that than argue about stuff that you think does matter. It's more
Right.
important to me.
Raheem Mostert's ADP matters,
Exactly.
people.
Come
Come
on.
on. Right, come on. Adjust your ranks. So,
Exactly. So, like one piece of advice I always give to like the younger guys who are like you brought up, the younger guys I know who are like, "Oh, I'm getting married. You know, what advice do you have? Get a comfortable couch." That's the one I always go to. You'll always do something stupid and end up on that couch at some point. So it sounds like you're set there with the couch. You're fine. Fantastic.
yes, and I'll tell you a story. My wife, God bless her soul. I am a chaste man. I've only, ever known my wife. Only ever been with my wife. I love her. I'm a good man. But in the olden days, there were times I'd go and have some libations. And so one night, my wife got wind that maybe I was going to go out again after coming home, a little bit inebriated. So she took my keys, hid them, locked me out of the bedroom. I didn't understand. I didn't understand. She wouldn't let me in. I texted my friend, and I don't remember any of this. Texted my friend. I said, I lost my car keys. I'm my brother-in-law. I said, I lost my car keys and a strong sense of who I am. And so that's not who I am anymore, thankfully, but that night it was not the couch. It was just the floor in the hallway. So I've learned, I've upgraded. If you're going to make a mistake, don't fall on the floor in your hallway. Go to a nice, comfortable couch.
Exactly. Have the comfy couch. It's the best thing you can do.
Exactly.
It's just looking out long term.
Yes. And if I smoke a cigar or something, she's like, don't come to bed tonight. And I don't do it very often. Maybe once every couple months, 2 times a year. But yeah. So,
well, in terms of fantasy football, what's the one piece of fantasy advice that you give out as much as possible? Like for me, it's when you're drafting, let the board come to you. Because going in with a set strategy of, oh, I'm definitely going to take a running back, wide receiver here, whatever, seems to be like the biggest mistake newer people make.
Yeah, I love that. I love that advice. I think that you can go in with a mindset or with a couple guys who you think are undervalued that you want to get.
And players you want to target.
Of course, yes. I think what happens is when you are like, okay, I love Raheem Mostert. I'm gonna reach for him in the 4th instead of maybe letting him come in the 5th or when you reach for those guys, you're getting them at their highest ADP. You're getting them at their peak potential value. Like you're buying the Mercedes at the showroom price and you're taking it off the lot. Okay, some guys you do that with. Maybe this year, for me, I would do it with the first round picks. Derrick Henry, I'm gonna do that. With CEH, I'm gonna do that. With Miles Sanders, okay, you do that. But in the later rounds, you don't need to reach for those guys. So I agree. I would also say to add to that, this is kind of, I'm not trying to be a weirdo, but know your league mates. I've actually studied the drafting patterns of my league mates. I have a data spreadsheet of all of their accumulated draft picks, what they like to do, how many running backs they like to target, when they target them. And so I'm going to go into my draft now knowing who I'm up against, where I'm positioned, especially the guys drafting on either side of me. What's their propensity to go running back heavy? I can use that against them in their kind of, in who I go after, knowing they're not going to get my guys. So
right. Yeah, that's a great point too. Like one of the home leagues that I play in, that we've played in forever, my advice is always, if you don't get a top 3 tight end, you wait. And if you can get it at a value, I'm okay with taking a top quarterback. But for the most part, there's so many of them that you can just wait. The home league we're in, everybody seems to want not only their starter, but a backup within like the first 10 rounds.
Yes.
So if you just go into it with the general strategy of I'm going to wait on QB, you're going to end up with like Dwayne Haskins as your starting quarterback because you waited way too long. So you're definitely right. You absolutely have to know the people you're drafting with in this situation.
Yeah. And you have to adapt as well. I mean, I think you can have a 0 RB mindset and then go in and go, well, I've got Jonathan Taylor and I've got Kareem Hunt in the 6th round. I'm going to get these guys. I need these guys, or whatever it is. Whereas if you're going to just go in and go, I'm going to go 0 RB, and that's all you think about, you might pass up value in those earlier rounds that you couldn't get later. I'm not saying 0 RB stinks. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying if you're fixed in that mindset and you force 0 RB in a draft that doesn't unfold to you, you're not advantageously getting players at their high value, their maximum value.
Yeah, absolutely. Be fluid. Be willing to move. That's a good point.
Yeah, I mean, I did not expect to go in a recent draft. I went Michael Thomas at the 4th pick. I was like, I have to do this. It was a keeper league, so there wasn't as many people available. So I went CMC, Saquon, Zeke, and then I was like, I'm going to go, instead of going Dalvin Cook or Kamara, I'm going to go Michael Thomas. Well, coming back, I have a keeper in Chris Godwin in the 4th round. So the running back, now I'm going to go running back. So as you're building, you're going to, okay, now I'm going to pivot to running back. Before I thought I was going to go running back early. I have to change it up a little bit and change my strategy. And so, you can't be static. Being static, you're going to lose if you're static. That's just how it works.
Well, yeah, and also don't be just stubborn. Nope, this is it no matter what. This is my strategy. Right. I'm doing it.
Right.
So you did mention a little bit, how many leagues are you in this year that you actually have to manage? Like, I play in a ton of best ball leagues, but that's Ron Propel. You just set it and forget it.
Yeah. I'm going to say 28 to 30 leagues I'm going to have to manage this year. So I'm going to have to set a whole chunk. Part of my calendar, my podcast calendar.
A whole day for starting lineups.
Yeah. Monday night is the podcast for my main big podcast I do with Mike. And so that'll be where we talk about the white waiver wire and the values. And then Tuesday evening, there's nothing. So Tuesday evening, I will go in, and that'll be my night just to research. And I already done the research on my guys, but research like who's available in the leagues and where to get them. And a lot of the dynasty leagues, though, no one's going to be available. We've got so maybe 10 leagues or 12 leagues that I'm really, Scott Fish, I'm not going to be getting that many guys in Scott Fish. We have deep rosters. So, and I don't think I want to drop any of my guys right now. I mean, I got Brian Edwards in like the 18th round and, Ruggs in like the 15th round. So I have guys that I want to keep on. I've drafted good guys. None of my guys got cut, but yeah, the redraft, though, the big redrafts I'm in, I think those will be up front. The big money, $200, $400 leagues you're in, those kind of take precedent. And then the other smaller leagues, I look at them every day, though. I'm obsessed. I mean, I am.
Yeah, I was going to ask, so you are also in the Scott Fish Bowl this year. I'm in the Scott Fish Bowl as well. And
nice.
I was going to ask how your team is kind of held up, because you see a lot of these horror stories like, oh, no, half of my guys from the top 6 rounds have already been cut or traded or something. But your team is held up pretty well so far?
Yes, I'm going to pull it up. I have it here in the MFL League, and I'm still really proud of it. I'm not ashamed at all of my team. And so let's go through this bad boy. My team is Matt Ryan. It's my starting quarterback. Then as my backups, I have Ryan Fitzpatrick and Jimmy Garoppolo. So those are the guys I'm working with there. My running backs, I have Zeke Elliott, Kareem Hunt, Boston Scott, Ezekiel Elliott. I'm sorry again. Ezekiel Elliott, Kareem Hunt, Eric McKinnon, Tony Pollard, Boston Scott, and Tariq Cohen. And then wide receivers, I have Mike Evans, Julio Jones, DK Metcalf, Calvin Ridley, Henry Ruggs, Deebo Samuel, Miles Boykins, Brian Edwards. And so I feel strong there. And then my tight ends are TJ Hawkinson, Rob Gronkowski, and Gerald Everett. So no cuts. No one's been cut. Yeah. If anything, Deebo's back
pretty well. Yeah, right. Yeah. So it's only gotten better since then.
Yeah. Yes. So I mean, here's the thing: we're not soothsayers. We don't know when we pick in July.
Right.
We're kind of just throwing darts, but it is nice when you don't lose your darts. And I mean, I'm biting myself for not getting Antonio Gibson. I love him. I loved him, and I got him the other night in the best ball before the news broke about Adrian Peterson. And I just told everybody, I taunted him the next day. I said, "You're not winning this best ball league. There's no chance." Yeah. I mean, I have Antonio Gibson in the 13th round. You're gonna lose. So
exactly.
Yeah.
We my lineup held up pretty well as well. Let's see. So I got Dalvin Cook and Chris Carson as my starting running backs, and I was actually able to get Alexander Madison and Carlos Hyde, and feel like I was able to kind of handcuff them and just own the Minnesota and Seattle running back situations.
Love that.
Based on how the board fell to us and with the tight end premium, I have George Kittle and Mark Andrews. And I also have Jonnu Smith that I got later on. So I feel like I'm pretty stacked at tight end. Because of that, I avoided top end wide receiver, but I got Terry McLaurin, Calvin Ridley. I got T.Y. Hilton, Darius Slayton, who I feel like is going under the radar a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
and then
Like
Preston Williams and
Love
Randall Cobb.
Oof,
And then my quarterbacks are my quarterbacks are Daniel Jones, Gardner Minshew, and Dwayne Haskins.
I like the upside in Gardner Minshew and Daniel Jones. Those are guys who should be throwing the ball a lot, and they're going to get between 40, 200, 4,500 yards. I mean, it's not going to be great yards. It's not going to be beautiful yards, but
sure.
There should be some come from, way down yards. So
I like the upside of Jones this year. He's one of my guys that I'm in on a bunch, and I've got the stack now with him and Slayton. So I feel
you have to stack.
That.
Yeah. And so in mine, I stacked Matt Ryan, Julio Jones, and Calvin Ridley. And then I mean, you got to do it. And I didn't know that I would have gone Tariq Hill if I would have known that I could have got Calvin Ridley.
That Ridley would have been there still. Yeah.
I wouldn't know. But I was like, I got to get Julio. And then I was like, I got to pair him up with Matt Ryan. Quarterbacks go early, and Scott Fish, those who played, that. And so I got Calvin Ridley in the fourth. But then I also paired up Jimmy Garoppolo and Debo. And so you got to have those in these bigger leagues. You got to kind of stand out, and you got to be a little bit different than everybody else. You got to get that high upside, or you're not going to get advancing to playoffs. So that's my thought in that.
Yeah, exactly. And then on the back end of running back, I was able to get Antonio Gibson in the 13th. And I got Josh Kelly as well, who I think has a decent shot to put up some numbers in LA.
Yeah, I like your team. The team is looking strong.
Yeah, I think it's holding on pretty strong. So
yeah, very much. No Adrian Peterson. No Adrian.
No Adrian Peterson.
No.
So I mean, you mentioned you're playing in all these leagues. Who would you say, like, among them, I guess specifically redraft, because Dynasty will carry over year on year, but who are you most invested in this year?
Yeah, so in my redrafts, I would say Calvin Ridley is one of my most invested, players that I have on my team. And then also, Mr. McLaurin, you mentioned him before, Scary Terry or F1 or whatever people want to.
Whatever your preference is. Yeah.
Yes, I have him on my big money league that we drafted last Saturday. I love him. I think he has top 15 potential this year for sure.
For sure. Yep.
For sure. I love him a bunch. And so he's on there too. When it comes to RBs, I've kind of been all over the board. I don't have a lot of RBs that I can say is on all my teams except for Kareem Hunt. I love Kareem Hunt kind of being that flex RB3 flex role that you can have in there. If you can get him as your RB3, it's hard to do. But and Scott Fish, I have him as my RB2. But I got Zeke as my RB1. And then, I'm rolling out Mike Evans, Ridley, Julio, and DK. So I'm feel fine in that regard there. But yeah, Kareem Hunt, I think he has a job to win in the NFL somewhere next year. So he's going to be balling out. He got, not to talk bad about him, but he got pulled over last year at the end of the year when the Chiefs were in the Super Bowl. And it was a sad video of him kind of just being like, I should be in the Super Bowl right now. And he should have. So he's got a chip. He's got a chip on his shoulder, and I think he really wants to get a new contract, a new team next year. Maybe it's a Cleveland. I don't know. I don't think it is. But I think he wants to ball out this year. And last year when he came in and he was averaging 13, 14 points in my fantasy league, we have a couple bonus points here and there for 40-yard receptions and things like that. He was just crushing it in PPR as the flex, and I love him this year. I really hope he balls out, and he has that first-round talent that we were drafting a couple years ago before he fell into those hard times with some of the choices he made. But I'm for redemption, so Kareem Hunt, get me some money this year.
Yeah, he was one where last year he finished top 20 in PPR when the last 8 games when he was playing. So if he ever, something happened to Chubb, whatever, he became the guy. He absolutely is in the top 10 conversation in PPR. And I'm sure he wants to be a starting running back next year, and he'll look for that contract. But he's in the unfortunate scenario where now we've already seen Fournette move, and we'll see what happens to him next year. But, Todd Gurley's on a 1-year deal. Aaron Jones is going to be a free agent. It's just a stacked class that he's going to be out there working against to try to find.
He better ball.
Yeah, exactly. He's got to put up those numbers if that's what he wants to do.
Right.
So then, Kareem Hunt seems to be the running back. Is there anybody that you're not invested in at all? Anybody that you've kind of avoided, but whether it's, situation or maybe just the price tag, the ADP that worries you?
I don't like Amari Cooper this year, and it's not that I don't like him. I don't like him in the third round or the end of the second round. I don't like that. It's a three-headed receiving monster, and I think that CeeDee Lamb is going to eat into his wide receiver one kind of opportunities, and so I don't know who's going to be the wide receiver one. I know that Amari Cooper is not the red zone threat for the Dallas Cowboys, that is for sure. And the reports out of camp the other day were that against the defense in live drills and live scrimmage, they're playing a real game. CeeDee Lamb had 3 red zone touchdowns. He was just being targeted consistently. I see Michael Gallup targeted consistently. So I don't have faith in Amari Cooper. I wouldn't be surprised if Gallup or CeeDee Lamb surpassed him, and not because they're not trying to get him the ball or anything, but just because there's so many weapons. Who are you going to key on? You're going to put a double on CeeDee Lamb in the slot? No, you're not. You're not. And CeeDee Lamb, he has, he's not the fastest. He doesn't have the best hands in it. But when you put it all together, I do feel like he has the potential to bust out. So Amari Cooper is a fade for me, unless I can get him in the 5th round or something. Then there's value. I'll pick him up. But I'm not going after him in the 3rd or 4th.
Yeah, it's pretty remarkable to think where we were, right? Like 2 years ago with Amari Cooper, he was going in like the high teens as a Raider because he was the only guy.
Yeah.
And then he got traded to Dallas and was literally the only receiver they had and was just getting force-fed targets and became top 10. And right now in ADP, he's still going in like that 12, 13 range. When Gallup is developed and now they've added Lamb, there's more mouths to feed. He's not going to get the same volume he has in the past. And then the issue with him has always been the hands and injuries. So
yeah,
I'm with you there. Amari Cooper is a guy that steadily throughout the offseason has slid down my rankings for no fault of his own, really. It's just looking at what the other players around him are doing.
Yeah. I do have another. I'll give you an RB fade. This is just for me, and I could be totally wrong. I love Chris Carson last year. I had Chris Carson last year. I had the opportunity to draft him again this year, and I went Jonathan Taylor because I'm afraid of injury. Chris Carson he's a violent runner. He goes up the middle. He needs to swivel. He's great on his feet. I mean, for a big back, I'm so surprised. Watching Jordan Howard run, I don't know how he doesn't get tackled every time, all the time. But then, when you watch Chris Carson run, you're like, wow, how does not that guy get tackled? Kind of the opposite. How does that guy should get tackled? He works his way in there. So with that hip, and I don't know, I've never had a hip fracture. I'm just a little bit concerned about his lateral movement. I want to see it, and so I can't pay up in that early round. If he falls, I'll get him, but I don't hate him. But I passed over him for Taylor this year, just thinking about that upside and really the Miles Sanders effect from last year. I got Miles Sanders, and it bolstered me into the playoffs in the end of the year. And I feel like Taylor, who, by the way, if you're a gambling man, his over-under on yards this year on DraftKings is 700 yards. That is just, oh my God, take that to the bank. I feel like he has a real opportunity the last half of the season just to get the rock and to take it and make it his own. And so he drafted him for a reason. It wasn't because Marlon Mack is an amazing running back. Marlon Mack serviceable, and I think that they're going to move on from him in a little bit, and JT's going to be the man. So, that's where I'm kind of at in that situation. So,
yeah, it's interesting too. For me, I always say that, like running back, especially in PPR, because I play primarily PPR, but in PPR specifically, your RB2 tends to be like the most overvalued position. If you can get yourself a for sure dominant, top 10 running back and you feel good about it as your RB1, I'm good like punting on RB2 for a while and just loading up on wide receivers. But if I can get a guy like Chris Carson as my RB2 in like the 4th round, where I've seen him go in some leagues, then
I like that better.
I'll do it because it's got the upside of being a top 10 guy when he's healthy. The question with him is just, how long does he stay healthy?
Yeah. Well, and you mentioned a point, too, about handcuffing. I don't like to handcuff in 15 or 16 team leagues because you're wasting a roster spot at times. But in the Scott Fish, where you have big rosters and you got 22 players on your team, whatever it is, that makes a lot of sense because you want. I backed up Zeke with Tony Pollard because I want that positional safety in the offense. You're doing that in Scott Fish is brilliant. It's a little bit different in the redraft where I'm a little bit more hesitant to have him and Hyde on there. I'm just like, oh, I could have somebody else like a Boston Scott or somebody instead that maybe gives me more upside in the flex. But I do like Chris Carson in the fourth. I've seen him go in the third a bunch, and I just never see him in the fourth. So we'll see what happens in about, I don't know, 4 hours, 3 hours. What time? 3 hours.
Exactly.
Yeah, 3 hours. We'll be live, and I'm going to be periscoping this. So I don't know if you're going to send this out.
Nice.
Maybe it's tomorrow, but there should be periscope footage of this on Twitter of my league mates.
Go back and check the footage, see how it compares to this interview. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
See if I'm just full of
shit. That brings up a good point too about handcuffing. Normally, I am 100% with you that I don't handcuff at all. I feel like it's a waste of a back end roster spot. I'd rather have a guy who's got the upside to eventually become the one on their roster. The only reason I've kind of pivoted this year to handcuff more than ever, especially with running backs, and especially those top guys, is because of it's because of the whole COVID situation.
Yes.
So the uncertainty of, being able to all of a sudden lose your starting running back like an hour before game time because they got exposed to somebody. And then all of a sudden I still have Madison. So I've got a top 10 guy anyway, and I'm good. That's the only reason I'm encouraging people this year to actually handcuff. Otherwise, I'm with you. I feel it's a waste of roster spot.
Well, the Dalvin Cook, I mean, I think that Madison's going to have value outside of Dalvin Cook. I mean, even if he's not, I like that pick as a handcuff.
Same thing with Pollard. Like, he gets involved in the passing game enough that he's got the value there.
Yeah. I think there's a level of handcuff, like the Mendoza line, where you're like, I'm not rostering Le'Veon Bell's handcuff. Like,
you don't want Frank Gore? Come on, you gotta get that Frank Gore.
One of my
making it to Canton 3 yards at a time. All right.
I tweeted out a couple months ago. There was an old white guy in a Buffalo Bills. I was like an old throwback retro thing. He was running on the field and everybody was blocking for him and flag football thing. It was cute. He was 97. And I said, man, Frank Gore just still killing it.
Crushing it out there.
Just push. Yeah, he's just still out there. His son is graduated from college, has 7 kids. His son is on the Pee Wee team. I mean, his son. I mean, he's just
exactly. Yeah,
it's a Frank Gore senior now. I don't know. It's a lot.
All right. Well, I mean, thanks for joining me, Scott. I appreciate it. Where can the people find you? We know Nimble W Numbers on Twitter, and shout out your website as well. Make sure people are heading there, podcast, all that stuff.
I appreciate that. You can find me lots of different ways. I'm on Twitter at NimbleWNumbers. I'm also on the interwebs at NimbleWNumbers.com. So same thing, just put a .com on the end. And then also at thefantasymillionaires.com is my podcast I do with my partner. But also, I just did my first Nimble with Numbers podcast yesterday, and I'm working on getting that set up on my own website too. So a lot of stuff going on. I'm on YouTube. I'm on Twitter. You put Nimble with Numbers or the Fantasy Millionaires into any platform search, you should find a good-looking, hairy, bearded man with his shirt on. Well,
most of the time.
But yeah, thank you for this opportunity. This has been great. I appreciate it, and I wish you the best of luck in the fishbowl, of course. And I hope we do not end up, in the championship and I have to beat you.
Have to go head to head. Yeah, then it's just awkward, right?
It's just awkward, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Shout out to Mike as well. Appreciate what you guys are doing with the Fantasy Millionaires. It's been good. I've been watching. Appreciate you shouting me out with my Fournette stat the other day. That was good.
You know what? Here's the thing about me, man. We're all standing on people's shoulders, and I love everybody, and I want to be able to. I'm not somebody who steals something and go, "This is mine." I want to. All my columns are this. The wide receiver 2 theory. I'm talking about. John Daigle. I'm talking about J.J. Zacharyson. I'm talking about 444. I'm talking. These are all things that we're all kind of learning together and learning from. There's no individual great, bestest, most importantest fantasy football person.
Right. There's no single oracle. Yeah.
No. We're all part of the id, and I just want to be the best little id person I can be and bring everybody, up and all together. And so if somebody says something, let's put it out there. Good stat. Yeah. I love it. So thank you for contributing. It's awesome to be in this space, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I appreciate you coming on here, and I want to thank you in general just because joining Scott Fishbowl, going through all the tweets, and then, like you said, finding your TikToks and all the stuff you were putting out there just to reel people in. You reeled me in. Yes. And I saw that and I was like, man, this guy is awesome. More people need to know about it. And it kind of got me down this whole like rabbit hole. Like, who else does our audience, do my listeners not know about that they should? And it kicked off me doing this entire series. So it all started with you. You're patient zero. So thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Most 40-year-old fat funny guys don't come out of nowhere. You see them when they're younger. You're like, who is this unicorn here?
Fantasy Unicorn. There you go. If it wasn't Nimble W Numbers, it would be Fantasy Unicorn. I appreciate it.
Plump Fantasy Unicorn. Put that in there. So,
all right,
well, thank you for having me on. This has been awesome. Anytime.
All right, so thanks again to Scott. And until next time, everybody, make sure you just keep up the nonsense.
Music for this podcast is provided by Lee Rosevere. I'm Tim Kitzer from NBA Jam and NFL Blitz, and you can find all the guys at ImportantNonsense.com. Kaboom!